Most brands I talk to have actually taken on AI CX tools and then dropped them. More often than not, I see tools that have either churned through multiple of them or adopted and gotten rid of them, where everyone's boss or their boss's boss is telling them about pushing on AI, but most people are not super fluent. The excuse of, oh, I didn't know you can do it with AI is getting so boring already. It's so insanely democratized that me, who has zero technical wherewithal, is building tools that are saving me at least 10 hours a week.
Welcome to AI Marketing Pioneers, where we explore how the best operators in commerce are turning AI from a buzzword into real competitive advantage. Today, we're joined by Eli Weiss, VP of Retention Advocacy at Yotpo, and one of the most respected voices in the D2C world, in my opinion. Eli has spent over a decade at the intersection of customer experience, retention, brand building, leading CX functions at Ollipop and Jones Road Beauty before making the rare jump from brand site operator to B2B SaaS, which is really interesting. And along the way, of course, he built one of the most engaged newsletters in the D2C space, now reaching over 25,000 operators weekly, which is absolutely amazing. And he's also an angel investor, community builder, and someone who has never once gotten a job through a traditional application. Gotta ask you about that. And every opportunity in his career came through genuine human connection, which tells you everything about how he thinks about relationships, loyalty, and brand. Today, we're getting into what it actually takes to build retention and CX that compounds over time. The real lessons from some of the best D2C brands in the world, and where AI fits into the picture and where it doesn't. So without further ado, let's dive in. Eli, welcome to the show. Really excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Sejin, and thank you for your kind words. I'm excited to chat.
Well, awesome. So to kick it off for our listeners, I thought that the first question could be a little bit more about your sort of general background, where you come from. So, from my perspective, your career path has been just incredible, from leading CX functions at high growth D2C brands like Ollipop and Jones Road Beauty, making that rare jump to B2B SaaS at Yotpo, and building that massive newsletter audience as well. Can you maybe just like walk us through your journey, high level, and maybe share some of the key lessons that you picked up along the way that you really found helpful?
Yes, and it still feels surreal to me. Some of this, I wake up in the morning not sure how any of this happened. Like how does it happen that a kid that grew up in an Orthodox Jewish world, number two of 10 kids without a high school education, gets to work at these incredible brands? How is it that a kid that never got on a plane until he was 16, never left the country till he was 20, how does a kid like that achieve any kind of like substantial career success? A lot of it is incredible luck, and when I say luck, I mean being in the right place, the right time, preparation, and all of that. Like there's I would call it kind of like thoughtful, concentrated luck in a couple of years, but more of it is actually who I am as a person. I doubt myself a lot. I'm really hard on myself. I like doing hard things, and part of my career trajectory has been just choosing things that felt interesting. But even though they were hard, they were challenging and exciting and interesting. The job, my first early in my career, I was, again, didn't have a high school education or college degree, and I was just doing odd small jobs, chief of staff type of roles, like a managed service provider, IT company, and a kitchen company measuring kitchens. Like I know way too much about Canadian oak and backsplashes, and that was my early days. And I started traveling, was living in Jerusalem at the time, and got excited about e-commerce, and just got a very entry level job making $33,000 a year doing customer service because I was somebody that spoke English and was able to talk to customers. I learned really quickly that being in the top of your game in customer service, customer experience was not so hard. All you have to do is moderately care. A couple of years into that, I started a startup failed. I moved back to the US in 2018 and kind of just started again from scratch, applying to jobs again, couldn't get a job. And I said, I can either spend the next 3 years trying to get out of customer support into like a CSM role at Slack, or I can just really, really become the 1% in direct to consumer customer experience. And at some point in 2020, made a conscious decision that I will try my hardest to do things differently. A lot of these examples, like Ollipop, was not Ollipop when I took the job at Ollipop. It was a 15-person NorCal, SoCal company that was selling healthy soda in Erewhon. Maybe, pre Sprouts, pre Whole Foods. That was when I say luck. Like, it was lucky that I chose a product I never tried, a company I never tried. It just, my gut told me that these people were good people. And that turned out to be just such an incredible career experience because they gave me the ability to think differently about CX. And then the kind of rest goes from there. I started tweeting about CX in middle of 2020 because I hated the idea of leaving my house, and networking sounded brutal. But if I can do it online and just kind of just not think about it, I would. I started tweeting and got a small audience there. Made a friend, Cody Plofker, who was then director of ecom at a company called Jones Road Beauty. Turns out, get to know him. It's his mom is Bobby Brown. He pulls me in. We became good friends. I started working at Jones Road Beauty, which, again, Jones Road was a legendary entrepreneur. Bobby Brown, incredible. The business wasn't a 9-figure business when I joined, but it was growing super fast. And again, a guy that knows nothing about beauty, knows nothing about this industry, jumped into beauty, and it was a really good challenge for me. And SaaS was, again, like a similar idea. Like, I hate getting bored. My ADHD is kind of like all over the place. And the idea that I can challenge myself to do something very, very different, but also I had a leg up because I knew Yotpo as a customer. I had churned Yotpo as a customer more than once. I deleted some tweets when I took this job at Yotpo. I had a real deep understanding of like what Yotpo ICP was, what they were trying to build, who they were going after. And that job has been nothing like my previous jobs. I'm not doing customer experience. I'm not really doing retention. Like, my job changes quarterly at the very least. And it's been the most fun. And that's kind of like, as I go through my career, I'm just trying to think like what's challenging and fun. And when it's challenging and fun, those two just yield incredibly fun and positive results.
That's awesome. And I mean, the one thing I love asking people about typically is the actual decision-making process. Because like ultimately, we're basically pretty much the sum of all the little decisions that we make every day, and also the big decisions that we make every day. But it sounds like the way you've been sort of navigating your own journey, it sounds like you made a lot of interesting and critical decisions that you were saying you were lucky to some extent. But I think, like when it happens multiple times, that means something about your decision making process is actually really good. So I'm kind of curious, kind of like digging deeper into how you actually thought about those opportunities, and like whether there's something that was interesting as a framework or mental model that you had looking back.
I think the famous kind of Danielle Kahneman thinking fast and slow is like something I think about a lot because I'm 100% on the thinking fast side. Most people I'm surrounded with are the thinking slow. I'm not a methodical thinker. I'm actually like a vibes thinker. Like, what that means to me is like, intuitively, I know right at the beginning, will this work? Will this not work? And I can kind of convince myself otherwise for a while. Like, to give you an idea, I spent 4 years at a luggage company. Then I got to a job at a company called Nugs. And a week in, I was like, I'm done. And my wife's like, you just started. And it was a weekend. And I said, no, this is never going to work. And I ended up like staying like 4 weeks and then kind of left and stayed there until, I gave them like a longer 3 months until I got the job at Ollipop. But I knew immediately, like 1 weekend, it just wasn't, I didn't feel energized there. And I think over time, like, I've gotten good at looking back and saying, what was it about Jones Road that was exciting? And I got better at looking back, like, why did I make the Yotpo decision? When I made the Yotpo decision, most of my friends, quote unquote friends that were in the industry alongside me said, like, what are you doing? You're going from like the most legendary, fast growing companies to a SaaS company that is kind of like shrinking over time. They haven't always made the right decisions. Not everyone loves them in Shopify, and they completely missed the boat. Like, me being at successful companies made me feel like garbage about myself because I didn't feel like I was any of the value. Like, Ollipop would be Ollipop without me any day of the week. Jones Road certainly didn't need me. And part of my complex, like the thing that the imposter syndrome for me, at least the way it shows up, is I want to feel useful and I want to feel valuable. And I felt like there's something I can bring to Yotpo from an industry point of view they didn't have. And I'm an insider. I can share from a product point of view, from a sales point of view, from all go to market, from PMM perspective. Like I feel like I can bring value to how we talk about customers, how we solve problems, how we build products. Like that felt valuable to me. But looking back, like over the years, my priorities changed. I got married, I had kids, my wife was in medical school, then now in residency. So over time, things changed. And also even with the newsletter becomes like a formidable part of revenue. And then it's like, okay, so now I'm not working for the salary. So now it's like, if I get offered double the money tomorrow, would I take the job? If you asked me that in 2020, every single time. If you offered me double the money I'm making today, I would say no. My life changed so dramatically that I don't care about the same things I cared about 10 years ago. So that's also the mental model. But Yotpo was actually like a really existential part of my career where after doing it at Ollipop and Jones Road, I felt kind of burnt out of doing the same thing. And now I'm like, okay, I know I can do it in multiple categories. I know I can do it at both bootstrapped and venture backed. I know I can do it at different sizes, but like it's just not exciting for me to jump in and do CX at a fintech company. I was actually interviewing for Built pre-launch, and I was in the final round for like a VP CX, and that would have been interesting. But looking after my Jones Road days, like that's not as exciting as I thought it would be. I just want to try something very different that challenges my brain. The three things I started thinking about at post the Jones Road debacle was I actually don't care about size of the company. I actually don't care about like what they sell. Like that's not where I'm going to get my kind of like life's fulfillment from selling people soda or skincare. I actually care about three things. One of them is, is it a hard problem to solve? Like, is this challenging mentally? Number two, am I the dumbest person in every meeting? Because that to me makes me feel like I want to feel like I'm mentally challenged every single day. And number three, like I want to have fun. Like it's like all of a sudden you're 10, 15 years into your career and you're like, well, that's a drag. And now you're like, you're making the money, you're getting the title, but it's still not fun. That feels wrong. So it was like a real existential kind of quarter life, midlife crisis. And Yotpo checked all the boxes. And then I asked myself, so does it matter that it's SaaS? Does it matter that it's got whatever history it has? And it didn't, because 2.5 years in, I'm more invigorated and excited than I ever have been. And I think it's taught me a lot about career decisions and career choices, because we go through this, you're told go to college to get a degree in math so you can become an actuary, so you can become an accountant. And then 30 years in, you're like, I never liked math. I was just good at it. And that was me with a lot of things I did. I was good at it. It didn't mean that it was like being good at CX for me means I can wake up in the morning, you throw a problem at me, I can solve it in 5 seconds. It's a superpower, but it's not fun anymore because it's not a challenge. It's like, this is not hard. So actually give me something I'm not good at. I want to get upskilled in that.
I love that. I love how you're actually breaking it down into three components and actually trying to think about it from the specific aspects of those tasks. I'm also really driven by hard problems and having fun in everything I
Yeah.
do. So I think that's really great to hear. Um, Maybe speaking of the Yotpo experience so far there, you mentioned you bringing really unique perspectives, like having actually lived through the space with a lot of awesome experiences. I'm curious, like what has been the biggest surprise for you after joining Yotpo? Like things like, oh, like why are these people not really realizing the real reality of D2C or the reality of businesses, how they're run, and like what are some of the key insights that you had coming in, and how are you actually leveraging them as you continue your journey at Yotpo?
So I'll give you like some funny ones, some pessimistic ones, maybe one optimistic one if I can find one. Number one, I feel like people are dreadfully rude to SaaS providers and CSMs, and then preach, like you see them preaching on Twitter about their customers and how they love their customers. I just don't buy it. I don't think you have two sides of your heart. You can be an asshole to one person and super nice to the other. And I don't think if you're a brutal customer to your SaaS vendor, I don't think you're the best boss to your employees. Like I just don't believe that. That's something I learned. extremely quickly and was blown away. Like every call at any SaaS company is recorded, whether you're using Gong or whatever. And I'm like watching these calls of people that I know, and I'm like, wow, that made me want to vomit. That's number one. Number two, in a more like interesting, I guess, like more generally interesting trend, I've noticed that you can talk to two different brands, both of them doing $200-300 million in revenue. You'll give them the same quote, and one of them will think it's super duper cheap, and the other will think it's 100x too expensive. So if you look at reviews category, right, there's Judge Me for $15 a month, which is an incredible tool, and then there's Bazaar Voice for whatever, thousands of dollars a month. And the gamut is so wide that you just learn you can talk to two brands the same size, and both based on what they've used or what they've seen or what they haven't used, pricing is wild. And it also dramatically makes them, like different customers in terms of what their expectation is from the tool. I've learned on the Yotpo side in general that, like, I guess I joined Yotpo at an interesting time where everyone was talking about SaaS being commoditized and everyone was saying reviews is down to the bottom and nobody's interested in blah, blah, blah. And you're seeing kind of like this massive AI resurgence of reviews actually matter because they help you show up more when customers really like you. So you're seeing like a lot of the boring kind of SaaS things not going to the bottom like people thought they would. The other thing, the kind of like more optimistic thing I've seen in SaaS is the general brains in ecom that I've seen over the last few years. Like we tend to think that the smartest people are in tech or the smartest people are in X, Y, and Z. There's just an incredible amount of IQ in both sides of ecom, both the B2B SaaS and the brand side, that I think is really, really inspiring. And even like down to AI usage, like you're seeing, like ecom is probably one of the front runners in terms of usage on AI. I mean, like look at your average local shop; they're not doing anything with anything. From a B2B perspective, ecom is moving really fast, both from a customer experience, like CX being one of the first, to growth marketing, media buying, to, I mean, down to ops and logistics. Like I don't think anyone predicted ecom to be the front runner on all of this.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I like how you're calling out the two words actually having amazing sort of brains running each of the industries, whether it's B2B SaaS or even e-com. I think they share similar strengths, but also at the same time, very unique perspectives coming from the specific industry sort of characteristics and how the sort of operations are actually like generally carried out all the way from customer acquisition to retention and everything. So that's super interesting. Um, One thing that's really interesting to me right now is in terms of how AI is actually becoming sort of a common conversation across like any single like business that you go talk to, but then also at the same time when you see the adoption of AI across different functions and industries, I think there's quite a bit of a spread and also almost a disconnect between the media hype on how AI is pretty much transforming every single industry every day to how it's actually being done across businesses of all sizes and different functions. So the general AI usage and adoption standpoint, what are you seeing from your vantage point, and like what are some of the interesting trends that you see that people should pay attention to?
It's a great question. So I saw somebody sharing this on LinkedIn the other day, saying like he was talking to his team and he saw they spent like 6 hours trying to automate a task that would have taken 10 minutes. And I think that's like a great encapsulation of what AI has done to some parts of this industry. Is like you'll spend 12 hours vibe coding a tool that you'll have to anyway run every morning, and it'll break every single time. And it didn't save you any time, but made you feel better about yourself. I think most of ecom early day AI has been some sort of semblance of that, especially around the CX side. It's like you automated all your tickets and it's just slop, and all the customers know it's slop, and and I think that's like the early adopters often get burnt. And for what? Like you're just creating a lot of fires. You're not saving much time. I'm proud of myself actually that I was able to stick it out for a good couple of months and slowly bring in 10% AI, 12%, 15. I think most brands shouldn't today be at 100% AI. But I think that's an example of like early days just being slop. It wasn't pulling the context correctly. It wasn't doing anything for you. I think over time, like as the models became much, much better, you're just seeing the output become better across everything you're doing. And as you get like the context, like finally GPT was able to collect context. Now Claude can have like skills and context. I know you're seeing like there's just a lot more that it can achieve when it understands A, your brain, B, your business. I think a lot of like what I'm seeing now is people realizing what should be done with AI and what shouldn't. As an example, like we are using Gong, like most B2B SaaS companies, and Gong's AI. I hope they don't listen to this, but it's abysmal. Like it doesn't do anything in terms of me. If I want to query 10,000 calls and say, what are the top 20 things that keep coming up? As far as I can see, their AI is not doing that at that caliber. You can pay, $40,000 a year for a competitive intel tool to do that same thing for you, or you can use the Gong API and Claude, build something on Claude Code or Cowork that'll pull in 10,000 calls and query that. That's like a great example of AI usage that can actually now build you battle cards and competitive intel monthly reviews, et cetera, et cetera. Another thing, like kind of on top of that intel gathering and acting on it, is like win-loss analysis. So basically understanding like from Gong and from Salesforce, like look at the like year to date wins and losses, pull up like give me all the data, give me statistics, help me understand like what it takes to win in very specific use cases. The other thing is like what I would call like third party intel gathering. So if you're using any sort of like tools that are pulling stuff from outside of your business, layering that into whatever tools you're building for the internal. So for example, if I have a competitive win-loss analysis and I have external data that's, surveys or whatever else, using that to layer it in on top. The other thing I'll say is Claude and all of these models have gotten so much better understanding personality and writing based on that. So for example, maybe shouldn't share this, but here we are. I started building like a enterprise go-to-market plan for our business with the team, and we're starting to think like, how does Yotpo win more enterprise deals? And something we've learned is understanding every executive's tone of voice is helpful, but if they ultimately like have to do the outreach, like the bottleneck for an exec outreach to whatever deal, that's where you get stuck. What if you can have a tool that finds the brand, scores them ICP wise based on your other customers, builds an attack plan based on what this tool has seen work across every other win we've had, then sends an email to the exec, hey, send this, it's in your tone to this customer, creates a follow-up deck. And I think what you're seeing now is like the ability to multitask and project manage something over 6 months with one tool, layering in a bunch of different information, is the unlock that I think most people are like, oh, can I get like a granola call summary and then plug it into my email and then ask Gmail's AI Gemini to like write an email versus like the real kind of like automation. That's been really interesting.
Oh, that's super interesting. So it sounds like you're also pretty heavy cloud code user right now,
Yes.
building a lot of interesting tools. What are you seeing in terms of the actual AI implementation and deployment within the CX function, or maybe the more broadly retention function itself? Because, like you said, CX or customer support in general has been, one of the sort of early adopters of AI pretty aggressively. But also at the same time, you and I briefly touched on this. I actually hate talking to bots
Yeah.
when I reach out to different brands. And the first thing I say on those bots is, like, connect me with a human agent. And that's
And
like
you work in
first
AI.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know the experience and I know how it works on the back end. That's why I'm always like, okay, I just want more human connection here. So I'm curious, like, what do you see as the latest trend in CX and customer support, and how companies are leveraging AI? Do you think the actual importance of human connection will continue to evolve, or do you think it's just fine? Maybe like at a mainstream level, like people are just fine and they're seeing better engagement and satisfaction overall with AI at mass adoption.
Yeah. I'll split it into a few different things you touched on. Number one is like the human connection that people need. Number two is like the how AI adoption in CX is going. And number three is where I think it's going. I'll start with like where it is today. I do think most brands I talk to, and I speak to hundreds of brands a year, through Yotpo, through the newsletter or what have you, most brands I talk to have actually taken on AI CX tools and then dropped them. More often than not, I see tools that have either churned through multiple of them or adopted and gotten rid of them,
Oh, wow.
and most likely in the early days. So a year and a half, 2 years ago, everyone jumped into the CX tool of their choice. They all, whether it was like the native, gorgeous customer, whatever AI tool that was early or a third party, spent a lot of money, dropped it. There's a ton of that. And now those people are slowly considering, like, why should I try it again? Is it much better? And you have to like convince them, no, it's gotten better as the models have gotten better. So that's where I see AI trending. It's like people are now only slowly starting to be open to testing it again because their first original implementation was garbage. I think you and I both, you in the AI world, me in the CX world, both of us spam, give me a human, give me a human. So it's safe to assume that your average Joe is not interested in talking to a bot. So what is it about the cognitive dissonance that we say keep throwing bots at them? I think the answer is when you're paying for it, you're like, no, it's fine. It'll be okay. Let them talk to a bot. But I think the other thing is people want to know, if you tell somebody, I can have two options. Either one, you wait on 45 minutes with Delta. Two, you talk to an AI bot that can actually solve your problem. They're obviously going to say AI bot that will solve my problem. The problem is the bots with Delta have been so brutal, or the bots with any, choosing him as an example, have been so brutal that we just don't trust that it's better. So I think that's like the education piece that we have to teach customers is there's a world where the outcome will be faster and better. A good example of that, not AI entirely, but Loop, like when you go through the return process on the Loop portal, it just is like, wow, that's exactly what I needed. I had to talk to nobody and it got resolved, versus me going back and forth on email with somebody that is likely a bot that's just going back and forth telling me I can't exchange it. Give me the AI, give me the tool any day of the week. I think we have to retrain customers. This is AI, but it's better for you. I think Amazon's AI is getting really good, but I think that's like the solution long term is AI needs to be reframed and repositioned as like, no, this will actually help you, which I think we're a long way to get there, not from a tech side, but from like a customer trust side, from the human, and that kind of answers the human behavior side. Like I think humans genuinely want to have more time to themselves and get to choose who they want, which other humans to spend time with. I don't necessarily want the human interaction I have to be with United customer support. I want them to solve my problem so I could spend time with my wife or my friends. And I think like that's the 6 to 12 month process, is changing customer understanding to when it's good, it'll be great. And I also want to know when really hits the fan, when something goes dramatically wrong. And I tell United, like, God forbid someone died and I need to get to the funeral and this bot is driving me crazy. I want to know that there's a red button that will bring me to a human immediately. And that's also increasingly poor. It's like when the AI doesn't work, you still wait 45 minutes. So you're telling me that AI will be better for me, but then you just cut 99% of the team. If I'm building a CX team tomorrow, I still want humans. I want those humans to be so levered that when the real bad thing happens, they pick up their cell phone and solve it in 5 minutes. Versus where it's going today is like, oh, I fired my whole team and hired a bot.
Mhm.
That's not the future. And I don't think anyone believes deeply that the future is humans will spend their hard-earned money and not get a single piece of human support when that breaks. If you believe that, you're crazy. Like, that's not the future.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, and that's actually in line with how we've been thinking about like where AI can truly add value in everything that humans do. And as much as I'm a big fan of AI and the advancement in general in this field, I think the key thing here is like human connections will still matter the most, no matter what. And AI should be designed and implemented in a way it can really augment all the human operators to do their job better, wiser, and faster with the right implementation across their existing workflows, rather than simply saying that, okay, we're gonna like put the switch and then everyone's gonna be replaced by AI. Like I don't think that's gonna happen. And like people kind of assume that that's gonna be the reality in the future. But
I think we also have
um,
to know the right time, right? So like
mhm,
I used this in the newsletter a couple of weeks ago that I checked into a hotel in London and it was just a machine, like an ATM. And it was like, oh, there's nobody at the front desk. You put in your information, it gives you the key card. If you'd have told me that by check-in for my flight, sure, no problem. But when it's a hotel and I'm paying for the hospitality, that's akin to me walking into 11 Madison and they say, hey, we're actually doing it really fast today. It's a machine. Consumer behavior and where like if you had told me it's a machine, I would have just booked a really nice hostel. For me, staying at a Hyatt without anyone at the front desk doesn't do it for me. So I think there's that as well. As like there will be portions of ecom CX that will be hospitality-esque, and the rest will be really good augmented human AI with the human in the loop if something goes wrong. But I think like there's the hospitality lens where, for example, if you're a VIP customer and you spend 10 grand, we're not going to send you through this insane loop over and over and over trying to get your $5 back when the shipping arrived late. It'll be solved like that because you're the VIP tier one and a human jumps in and solves it. And right now, brands are just so poor in that department of escalation. And it's like AI slop entirely or humans, and it takes 2 weeks. And I can't think of many. It's sad, but I really can't think of many brands that do this well. Yeah. And we're still early.
Yeah. Well, if you come across any best examples out there, send them my way. I haven't found any either.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. You talked about designing and building up a CX team from scratch. Hypothetically, I'll be actually curious. How would you actually design your CX customer support team from scratch if you were to build it out with everything you know, the insights and the technology that you know?
So I think the biggest missing piece in CX teams is usually actually the data layer on if this then that. So policies, like the boring stuff, is actually really important. As an example, the example I'm giving about a brand I spend a lot of money at, and then something goes wrong and they don't fix it because I'm 31 days out of the purchase date instead of 30. That's a boring policy tick, right? Like it's probably about, and they didn't create an exclusion for tier one customers. I think that boring layer, if it's not done well, it actually matters more today than it mattered when I was in my early days in 2015, 16. Now it actually matters because if 80% of your tickets are AI, those edge cases matter. And that's how you piss off a customer that has spent $10,000 at your brand. So I would spend a lot of time on building those, like, and you can build it with Claude, right? Like you can say, hey, Claude, design me, some sort of like very, very tangly web of policies and edge cases and build that out for me. For most brands, unless your ACV is insanely high or unless it's like something dramatic, I would want 60 to 80% of my boring CX to be handled by AI. So policies, returns, like I just want you to send me the label quickly. I don't want to wait 4 days for the person to get back from their holiday to send me the label. And then I would try to hire the best in the world hospitality veterans to do the 20% or the 5%. I want 11 Madison for the 2% that really need it. And that could be one person. Like you can have one person that is director level or senior director level that leads this whole thing, and they're still doing the work for the 2% of escalations. I'd rather that than hiring a bunch of like really junior people that don't really have any sort of like reason to be hospitable and excited. And it has nothing to do with level and tenure. It has more to do with, is there motivation to build incredible experiences? Because if so, you're in. If your motivation is to just like close tickets, that can be done by AI. So I would focus on policy, but with a ton of caveats. I haven't seen a brand that does this well of like understanding edge cases. I would then work with like AI to slowly increase to 50, 60, 70%, maybe even 80, depending on the product. And then I would just try to build the best in the world escalation.
That totally makes sense. Would you try to vibe code agents yourself, given your knowledge, or would you try to find an external vendor? If so, like why not?
I would definitely find an external vendor. I'm not like I think vibe coding is more helpful for interfacing tools with one another and layering data from one thing to another. I think if like somebody spends all day doing this for hundreds of other customers, I'd rather actually pull in their learnings versus try to vibe code it myself. Most vendors that are working with a bunch of brands have a ton more context on what works and what doesn't versus you building it yourself. So I think in general, I wouldn't do that. I would say like what's important to me when I would be looking for a vendor is understanding what is off the shelf and what can be customized, because a lot of that is where things break. Like if you're just doing the same thing for everyone, I don't think every brand is the same. I don't think it's not just tone of voice, it's expectation, right? Like if I'm buying a coat, yes, like it is what it is. If I'm buying prenatal vitamins and I'm in a very, very stressful part of my life, it's just a different animal tone, but also policy and infrastructure you set up. I just think like you need a partner that fully gets your business. But outside of that, like it's hard to fully understand like what differences between a lot of the current CX AI vendors are, because a lot of them are just built on similar infrastructure. But I don't know enough because I've been out of it for a good year and a half.
That makes sense. Um, cool. I like how you're even designing the sort of a org structure based on the actual customer experience, what you can expect from different levels of importance. Like it almost sounds like you would have a like dedicated human expert that can actually, craft the real human connection for the most important connections. Whereas for a lot of the sort of routine and the sort of policy related stuff, that like you would like definitely try to lean into AI, and of course make sure you have the right sort of guardrails and the setup to make sure the actual triage and the process are working
I just don't
fine.
think the stakes aren't that high. If somebody's asking like, if somebody says, what's my tracking number? Stakes aren't high. Like,
Mhm.
oh, hey, thank you so much for choosing X. Like, that's not necessary. Just give them the tracking number. That's all they want. If somebody's saying like, hey, it's been 3 weeks and I still haven't gotten the tracking number, stakes are a little higher. If somebody's saying like, this is insane, I ordered it for my wedding and my wedding's tomorrow, I still don't have it, stakes are even higher. And I just think that most brands don't know where to kind of like when to escalate properly. And I've seen this myself as a customer. It's like I've seen where you make it very clear the stakes are high. And still, okay, I need to talk to the supervisor. Well, the supervisor will tell you the same thing. Well, that's for me to decide. I just think CX in general, the bar is so low and most experiences are so poor that it begs the question of why is hospitality doing so much better of a job? And you'll tell me, well, they're this is different, that is different. Okay, but assuming the numbers are the same, assuming I'm spending $150 or $300 for a pair of shoes and $300 for dinner, I don't go eat $300 dinner every week. So it's the same lifetime value. Assuming percentage of people that have issues is the same thing. So minus one being IRL and one online. Why is it that CX is so much poorer than hospitality? Why is it that hospitality can do so much better of a job? And I haven't gotten an
Mm,
answer yet. Like most people
mm.
can't. Like, why is an average restaurant in Philly caring so much more about my $98 than the footwear brand?
Yeah, I think there's something about the actual human interaction that you expect from these products. So if you're actually delivering the service or product pretty much in person, I think there's a inherent expectation that you are there to keep the customers happy. Whereas if you move it to digital space or like D2C specifically, I mean, you don't really have any like in-person like relationships. Pretty much like a machine to machine in a way.
And yet
Uh,
Zappos and Chewy have said, hey, let's actually try to think of it similarly. And again, like
mhm,
5 years ago, you would tell me, yeah, but Zappos is Zappos, assuming the cost is the same, because now it
mhm,
is. You all have the same AI tools. You all have the same people on your team. The CEO can take 2 of these emails a week. There's no excuse anymore.
mhm.
And if you're still delivering mediocre experiences for your top 1% or your highest stake customer interactions are still garbage, you're the problem. Technology is bringing us to a space where you can do it. You can deliver the best in the world experience for the most important 1%. And brands that aren't are saying, I don't care. And that's fine. But I think the future of CX is so bright when all of this is democratized.
When you say democratize, like, are you speaking in terms of the actual tooling and the AI actually
The time,
enabling
like when
time
you have
itself?
AI tooling that's solving 80+%, you don't have to hire a team of 10.
Sure.
It takes you 10 minutes a week to handle the most important ones.
Mhm,
Every executive leader on your team can take 10 tickets a week. And
mhm.
you, for most businesses, you solve all of these high stake issues. The only answer is you don't care enough. I think that's going to become more and more prevalent as we'll learn which brands care and which brands don't. Because when you reach out and you're like, hey, I'm a VIP customer, and you're fighting back and forth with me for 3 weeks about $5, they can't say, no, we really care. Because 6 people saw the email and all of them decided, no, we'll stick to our guns on the $5. And in that case, it's a cultural issue that your brand is not built to care about your customers. And I agree that if it's in person, like a restaurant, the restaurant would be closed. But for some reason, ecom has been given this graceful exclusion to the rule of caring about customers. And I think AI is actually going to help it come back.
No, that's super interesting. I mean, as you can tell, I can chat for hours on this topic.
Yes.
Like, deeply passionate about that.
Yes.
I'm sure you are too. In the interest of time, Self, I kind of want to hear a little bit more about your newsletter and the community that you have built so far over the years. It's pretty amazing how you actually grew the community to be more than 25,000 subscribers. And I think how you're covering CX retention and the overall customer experience in general, I think that's actually really impressive and see like a lot of growth content out there. Um, is there anything that's particularly interesting and noteworthy from your subscribers and so many brands that you already talk to every day? Um, like, what are some of the interesting trends that you notice when it comes to AI and how they're thinking about AI? I mean, you talked a little bit about how the actual AI tooling in CX space has been sort of a little bit up and down with different options and people churning. But I'm curious, anything that you see from your community that's particularly interesting and noteworthy, that actually informs you about like where the industry is headed and what people are thinking about.
Few things. I think number one, we're still early. Like I think most brands don't have a strong AI understanding or a strong deployment yet. Like we're still in a phase where everyone's boss or their boss's boss is telling them about pushing on AI, but most people are not super fluent. I think in the last like 6 months, we're seeing a ton of questions around like GEO and AEO and how do we show up to the point that like Yotpo is about to release a new product called Yotpo Discover, which will help brands show up more. That's been like a massive thing that I've seen across my CX and retention audience. I think the third thing is people are more excited about boring things. And I started writing this newsletter 3+ years ago, and everyone was like talking about kind of like future of CX and what's going to happen with AI and all of that. And now it's more like assuming AI can do all of this, like what are the other boring stuff we need to tackle? Like I've recently been writing more about like operational issues you have when you get from 15 to 20 million and your 3PL and like your SKUs and your setup and your meta tags. Like a lot of the boring stuff is now relevant again. But I think those are the big three.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, it's interesting you mentioned the AEO and GEO stuff. Like we keep hearing that from like our customers quite a lot. I personally think there's a little bit too much of a hype there
Yeah.
at this point, but also at the same time, it's a real opportunity for a lot of brands out there. Um, when it comes to D2C specifically, though, I'm actually curious to hear your take here. In D2C, we've seen a lot of brands come and go, like so much transformation over the past 10 or 15 years. And when you look at all the D2C leaders or companies from the previous uh, era on public market, they're really struggling and trying to
Yep.
find almost like a meaning in the market. Um, like, where do you see the industry is headed? Like for like D2C in general, do you think D2C per se, as we know, will continue to sort of exist and evolve and continue to mature with more brands and more interesting products, or
I
do you
yeah.
see something fundamentally different happening?
I think there's a lot of kind of talk about D2C as like this religion. And I think over the years we've learned that it's just a channel. So I think you're seeing a lot more brands go omni-channel more than we've ever seen. Like everyone said, retail's dying, but retail seemingly is not at all dying. It's growing. So I think you're seeing a ton of omni-channel. You're seeing a ton of social commerce, which like we've been talking about for a decade, but it's actually finally happening with TikTok. I think over the last 10 years, we've heard 100 times that no, it's happening in China, it's going to happen in the US, but it took way longer than most people expected. And you're seeing brands build, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue year 2 or 3 from, like Comfort is a great example. Built like hundreds of millions of dollars revenue on mostly TikTok and affiliate. I think the kind of like old where only D2C is slowly becoming a phenomenon of yesteryear. The largest D2C brands are selling on TikTok Shop.
Mm.
I think today somebody said like Ulta Beauty is starting to sell on TikTok Shop. Jones Road Beauty, which was 100% D2C forever, just launched on TikTok Shop. So I think you're seeing brands realize that it's everywhere or nowhere. It's like the big one is like D2C is just a channel, and I think everyone's aligned now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Well, this has been great, and Just to be mindful of your time, one last question before we wrap up. If you were to give a single advice to any of today's D2C operators out there, what would that advice be? It could be about AI, it could be about operations, CX. Curious what you'd say.
Yeah, I'll choose AI just because it's the theme of the podcast. I just think that the excuse of, oh, I didn't know you can do it with AI is getting so boring already, right? It's like it's so insanely democratized that me, who has zero technical wherewithal, is building tools that are saving me at least 10 hours a week. And I'm not a tech guy. And I think it's like I've literally things that took us in the past 12 hours with a team to do, I did in 5 minutes. Like it's not to be believed. It's like query 10,000 names, go into their profile, find me these three pieces and throw it on a spreadsheet. Like that would take us a team of 10, 2 weeks to do. And you can do that. Hey, deploy 17 agents, use all my credits and do that. And it's not normal. So I think just jump into Claude, use cowork because it's less scary than code, and just ask the question the same way you would ask your mom or your friend or your boss. Say like, hey, I'm trying to use whisper flow, so you can just talk, say, hey, I'm trying to do this and it's taking me 2 hours. There has to be a better way. Can you help me? And then say, just jump into my browser, use Playwright and jump into my browser and just look at it yourself and tell me how to do it. And you will not believe how. The other thing you can do, which I did early on, is I was using Granola. And I said, I logged Claude into my calendar, into my Granola, and I said, look at what I've done in the last 3 weeks. Go through every single meeting. Come up with 5 tools that you think can help save me 20 hours a week. And it was so spot on. It was crazy. Like and I said, okay, start building. And it just built one tool after another. And if it's not good or if it's not usable, I'll say like, hey, I'm using this tool and I'm having this error. Or, hey, I'm using this tool and it's actually more manual than I thought. What do you think you can add? You don't need the answers, you need the questions. And that's the beauty of AI, is just asking questions is so much easier than coming up with the answers. There's no excuse. Like there's no excuse. I'm not technical. I just jumped in and got stuck. And 2 weeks later I came out of the cave and literally built things that actually mattered. So that's my advice.
I love it. I'll be curious to see everything that you have built 6 months from now on using
Yes.
cloud. And it'll be great to have another chat there. But this was great. Thanks, Eli, for joining the show, sharing awesome insights. I'm pretty sure all our listeners really enjoyed the show today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you really enjoyed the show today, don't forget to subscribe, like, or follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And until our next episode, see you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to AI Marketing Pioneers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Stay tuned for the next episode where we bring you insights from the leading minds in AI marketing.